Hi everyone, and welcome to our April 21 virtual coffee with. Today I am delighted to welcome both Jude Whelan and Tina Beltramin from Manningham Council. Hi Tina and Jude.
Hi Sharon, yep, thanks for the opportunity.
Jude has been at Manningham Council for 2 years as the Manager of Communications, starting her career in various community service roles and then moving into marketing and communications, working in media, education, community health, and now local government. While Tina has a social work background and is the Positive Ageing and Community Access Coordinator at Manningham Council, supporting the delivery of Council's social support and regional assessment services and striving towards an age-friendly community. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from which we're meeting today, for me, the Wurundjeri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So given it's a Monday morning, Jude and Tina, how were your weekends and what did you enjoy doing that perhaps you weren't able to do in 2020?
I'll go first, Jude. Okay. I had a lovely weekend. I went away for the weekend with a couple of girlfriends. We went to a winery for lunch, had lovely walks. So it was nice to get out of Melbourne. So it was a good weekend.
Sounds delightful. And Jude?
I had a great weekend, but very different to Tina's. So my weekend was spent on Sunday. I had a lovely day with our community panel. So we've got a community panel that's looking at working with providing recommendations about our strategic documents, including our council plan and the like, and certainly many parts of our community and a range of different issues were raised. And so that's what I did, but we did it in person. So we would not have been able to do that last year.
Wow, a very different experience and probably a relief after so many online meetings in the past 12 months. So Tina, tell me about your role and what excites and motivates you in your work.
Well, it's quite a varied role because it's connected to direct service delivery, you know, the Commonwealth Home Support programs that we deliver at Council. But it also has that other interesting aspect, which gives me the opportunity to work in our strategic planning. And at the moment, Council's doing their council planning and their healthy city strategy. So that's the area that probably I see a great opportunity and possibility of, you know, influencing to try and make our community a better one for all people. So it's a good role, a nice varied role.
Great. And Jude, good communication is obviously really, really important, and we've seen that particularly in the past 12 months. So what were some of the wins for your team during the past year?
Sharon, I think the role of communications really shone in the importance of it during COVID. There was a lot of change that was happening throughout the organisation, and all parts of the organisation were changing the way that they delivered services, or our facilities were running or not running, how we continued to support our community. And so the role of comms is very much about supporting and promoting the good work of the rest of our colleagues that they're doing around the community. And we had to find new ways of doing that communication. Our traditional ways, we have a print publication, and the lead times for that are really long, and COVID was changing things so quickly. When I think back to last year and how quickly things were changing and how we had to get that out to the community, we had to change the way that we communicated. So that was one of the big things that we had to change and deliver on. So yeah, that was a big one.
Fantastic. And can you see that having an impact moving forward, that will be an ongoing, lasting approach?
Oh, I wish I could really answer that clearly. Even at the session yesterday, we talked about the role of print versus digital. And somebody said to me again, oh, but you can't just go digital because the older people in our community can't, won't use digital. And I go, hang on, it's not about age. That's we certainly appreciate that there are some people who are less likely to use digital ways of communication, but it's certainly not based on age. So it's one of those things that we'll come to again, I'm sure, a bit later in this discussion. But it's it's really interesting, that stuff about how do you work out which how useful is a printed publication and who in our community is best served that way. We wish we knew the 10 or 20% who really want print, and then we'd send them a print publication. But at the moment we do 55,000 of a print publication, which we know half of them get thrown straight in the bin, but we don't know which half. So we're doing more work on trying to understand those communication preferences.
Yeah, so a few challenges. Great. So given that we're more than 12 months into coronavirus times, what reflections do each of you have about the impacts on the people that you work with and in the Manningham community?
Yeah, well, I'll pick up some of the threads that Jude's already mentioned. So when it all happened, we're all scrambling, changing the way that we work, changing the way we communicate with people. We obviously provided services right throughout the pandemic, even during the most severe of the lockdown. But I guess it was interesting in terms of the people that we help. We desperately tried not to jump to conclusions about what these people might need or not need, and because there was a lot of flinging around of the words vulnerable. If you were over a certain age, you were vulnerable. And I remember saying to people, what do you mean vulnerable? Vulnerable for what? So we decided to go down the line of checking in on all of our people, all of our clients, and also all of our staff, just to check what were their potential risk points. And so then you get a better sense of, okay, well, your risk point is that you might have trouble shopping, or you might not see family, therefore you're going to potentially be a bit isolated, and we know that could lead to loneliness and so on, as opposed to just flinging around that anybody in a certain position was definitely vulnerable. And that included people who might be living alone. And as Jude's already pointed to, we contacted all of the clients that we serve, and I did a lot of those phone calls myself. And I actually was quite amazed how resilient a lot of these older people were. They were remarkably resilient, and had made arrangements to get around some of the factors that were impinging on them. But there were definitely other older people who did have risk factors and who had absorbed some of that messaging and were feeling, I'll use the word vulnerable there, but really when you teased it out, well, hang on, if you get some support with these things, you'll be okay. And I guess the residual of that is now that we still have some people now who are still hesitant to venture out. We've restarted some of our programs face to face, but it's a really slow process with really good communications, being gentle about how you might work with people, and not making assumptions about what people can't do, or will or won't do, or any of that. You just got to take people as individuals, really.
Yeah, sounds like a bit of a way to go, but a useful approach and helpful with supporting people. What about you, Jude? What reflections do you have on the impacts on the Manningham community?
Well, I think that, again, Tina's picked up some of them, but we did do a couple of key bits of research and surveys during COVID and even this year. And it is really interesting that there was no doubt that, as Tina said, a lot of people were resilient, but that importance, that discussion about what comes next and that recovery part of it was really, it's not a was, it's still very much an is. As Tina says, that we know that there are some people who are still reluctant to go outside in the same way, and certainly that little week lockdown we had a little while ago, earlier this year, didn't help that. So just when people were starting to go out and just getting feeling a bit more confident, we had that lockdown. So so I think that that kind of recovery thing for me is really, recovery part is really important, and we need to keep working on that. The other thing that came out a lot in our research was around the social connections and the importance of that. And again, more people feeling quite vulnerable, and that sense of isolation was something that needed to be addressed constantly by throughout our community, because you can't assume that people have got families and friends and people close by to do that. And some of those phone calls that Tina spoke about before, it was incredible what their team did in terms of, if I think about good communication, they did it, they lived it. They didn't need to be told that. Tina's team just did it. They picked up the phones and started ringing. And so each and every one of our community members that they had contact with got regular calls. And for me, that's just perfect communication.
How nice of you, Jude. Thank you.
It's great to see. So I know that you're both passionate about tackling ageism in the Eastern region. Slight little plug there that, you know, we are working with the PCP, with the 7 councils, on a regional campaign to tackle ageism. Why are you passionate about this, and how does it fit within each of your roles and Manningham's values?
Well, shall I kick in first, Miss Jude?
Go right ahead.
I think, well, look, I mean, our council plan does, and our values within council, it's all about being inclusive, and inclusive of age, ability, diversity, which we are really trying hard in that space. And for me personally, I've already got on my in my space that we want to try and be age and dementia friendly community. So this aligns 110% with what I want to achieve in my space, but also what our council wants to achieve, because really it's about respect for people and including people of all ages, not making assumptions. So it's like all the other isms, but ageism is about people who are in this campaign that we're working on, older years. So I think it aligns really strongly. What do you think, Jude?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Tina. The isms, and it's interesting when I think back, you know, on my career, and I started with youth work, and it was about the ageism that happens with young people, and here I am now at a different stage in my career, and I'm certainly become much more about the impacts for older people, about what that means, and often it's people not they actually don't mean to be bad, or they don't mean anything negative in the way they say or do things, but the way they come across. And I remember years and years ago when my mother said, you know, she said, why does everybody say little old women? You know, like, why? You know, she's saying, and she's saying, I'm not little. I'm not old, but I'm not little.
I know.
But it was the way that she took that, and that was years ago. She's much older now, but that was one of the first things, and that always stuck with me about the way language is used, and about just a simple word or a simple collection of words can mean something so negative for her. So yeah.
It's the way we've absorbed it, I think, too, as a community, as individuals. And look, I'll stick my hand up and say I can't say I've never said I've had a seniors moment, but when you think about some of the things that we've said that we just sort of fling out of nowhere, well, what are you really saying? What do you mean by that? We have to raise the awareness, not only for others, but it's for all of us, for ourselves. We're all getting older, and we all sometimes slip into these little habits or ways of saying things that it's just not right. So, and I was actually going to go back to, if I go back to my grassroots in social work, it's all about a social justice for me, it's about social justice and ensuring that everybody gets an equal, you know, opportunity and equal say. So I think tackling ageism is working in that space too.
Yeah.
And language, I mean, we've talked a bit about language, but again, it was like somebody, you know, when somebody said to me, you know, elderly, if we write reports or say anything about elderly community versus elders in our community, it's a completely different view that people immediately have.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
so that's the consistency that we need to get throughout our organisation, and will hopefully impact the way that we communicate and out to the broader community.
Sure. I mean, it definitely feels like there's a lot of things we need to unlearn, and I absolutely agree, Tina. I'm as guilty of it as anyone, that we all are ageist much more often than we would like. So let's hope we can raise that awareness and turn it around. Are there, you know, what do you both think are the important elements? You've mentioned a few of them in a campaign to tackle ageism. We've talked about language, we've talked about social justice. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention, or that you think is really important in this sort of campaign?
Well, I think we're doing it as a whole EMR group. Even that's an achievement in itself, to get the 7 councils aligned on the same page on an issue. I think that's terrific, and all of the councils in the EMR should be recognised for that. That's a fantastic achievement. I guess the other thing that I really like about this campaign is that it's actually aligned to a national campaign, the Every Age Counts campaign by the Benevolent Society. So it's not something in isolation just happening out there. It's actually linked to something that's bigger than us, that, you know, it was, because to me that means there's a possibility of some sustainability of actions beyond the immediate campaign. So I think that's a really nice element in this campaign as well.
Yeah. Jude, what about you?
I think that it's really, it's great that the 7 councils are working together, because we know that community members don't stay in a council group, in a council area. They move, and they've got family and friends in other municipalities. So if we can work as a group of 7 councils to be able to really send some of those consistent messages, hopefully that will go broader than the 7 councils, but it will be something that family and friends within those 7 council areas can talk about, and all have hopefully some understanding of what we're trying to do.
The other nice element about this campaign is hopefully it's not about wagging a finger at people and telling people what they're doing wrong. It is about awareness raising. And there was a big discussion about this at the beginning of this campaign, about how much you push something or whatever. But I think that for a lot of people, awareness raising is a helpful strategy. And even within our own organisation, as you said, Jude, we can look at our language, and it's just streamlining some of that. So a lot of people will come on board through that awareness raising, as opposed to wagging fingers and telling people they're being bad or doing something wrong. So it's about presenting good, strong, positive images of older people in our community living their lives, and also recognising, of course, there's some people who do have needs, and we support that too. So it's about presenting those sorts of stories and images. So hopefully that's what the campaign will achieve.
Yeah, well,
and I think some of those, sorry, Sharon, some of those case studies are really powerful. And I think I mentioned before about our community panel over the weekend, and we had a guy who's joined the community panel, and he had his 90th birthday. So he came along, he spent his 90th birthday with us in the panel before, going home and having more celebrations with his family. But he talked about his community roles, as like what he's done in the community over the last, umpteen years. And it was incredible. There were a number of people around that group that were just absolutely amazed about this man that had been involved in community service, contributing to the community for such a long time, and he's still a very, very active man at 90. So I think that there's lots of really good stories and people out there who are who hopefully will be able to you know, tell those stories, tell some of those stories, and communicate that out.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the campaign kicking off our, hopefully from next week, our external campaign. And from the PCP's perspective, we're extremely grateful to all of the councils for, you know, making an effort to have some coordination and collaboration around this issue, which I think is hugely important. So thank you. Just to finish off, you know, what strategies have you found that have helped you both personally during COVID-19? We often get lots of really interesting tips and ideas with this question. So Jude, would you like to start?
I mean, Sharon, I think I was incredibly lucky. I was in that lucky group where I had a job, I have friends, I have family. So what got me through it was all of those things. And it reinforces the importance of those things. All of the ability to be able to get out and walk for more than an hour, or for more than, you know, travel more than 5 kilometres, things that we've just taken for granted. And then to have those challenged and be able to, you know, move around again. Those things are, yeah, they're really important, and that's what's got me through.
Yeah, I agree. Tina?
Yeah, very similar. It's about catching up with people at whatever, you know, whether you could have 2 people or 3 people or 5 people. So, and really just taking, getting that value out of really simple pleasures, yeah, and recognising that. So yeah, that's really what got us through.
Thank you. Well, I would really like to thank both of you today for your time in just chatting about what you do, so that our partners have a better understanding of your roles, and also talking about ageism, which I think will be a really fantastic campaign across the region. So thank you so much, Jude and Tina, and yeah, look forward to catching you at another time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Sharon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.